Welcome back. MTG Joe here. This weekend, there's a standard metagame challenge on the MTG Arena client. So it's 2,000 gold to enter, and you get to win upwards of 30 free packs of cards. So we're going to do a metagame breakdown looking at the best decks from Diamond and Mythic Rank. Folks have been playing in the last week and a half that you may want to consider taking to the event itself. So we'll cover each of the deck lists. We'll paste them into the video. We're going to get the data from Untapped.gg, what you see on the screen, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates user win rates, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats. You can track your own win rates if you're interested. In-game overlays, whole bunch of cool features. Link is in the video for Untapped as well, if you want to get started today. So we're going to start off looking at the metagame distribution, kind of what the populace of decks being played right now are, and then we'll look at the corresponding win rates of those decks as well. So starting off, Golgari Midrange has taken the throne as the highest played in terms of volume at 19%, Boros Convoke at 13.7%, Mono Red Aggro at 9%. Keep in mind this is best of 3. We have Esper Midrange at 6.5%. We have Simic Affinity, Simic Cookies at 6%, then Azorius Control, 5-color Domain, and Temur Midrange, all kind of rounding up the squad. So we're going to take a look at about 8-9 decks. I will say the Esper midrange decks and the Azorius control decks haven't had like the highest. I'll pull just like a deck list, probably those we'll see as we get through. But in terms of just the games played, 12,000 over this time period, Golgari midrange has the highest win rate at 73%. So the biggest thing from like even the last standard Pro Tour Reduke, they had Caustic Bronco in here. This gives you 7 2-drops that provide card advantage in a way. The Bronco can also be reached by pinging your opponent or making them lose life if you do crew it in terms of the saddle, or I guess saddle, not crew. It's the same kind of idea. You have Sentinel, the Law of the Nameless City in the 3-drop slot, Glissa, as well as Yawgmoth. Notably, no bats in this particular version. Lilies, Sheoldreds, just a bunch of good individually powerful cards, backed up by flexible removal cut downs. You have Terra Sunder that can hit like Leyline bindings and stuff. Edicts in here, go for the throats, Duress as hand hate. And then you have Analyze the Pollen that can be a tutor late game or early game, help you hit your land drops. Most of these like rock style strategy decks also leverage, usable creature lands or utility lands. You have Restless Cottage, Cavern of Souls, you can name like Phyrexian to get some value there. Hand hate for the grindier matchups, control matchups, mid-range matchups. You can just outrageous robbery to go over the top. Just various removal, graveyard hate, sweepers for the aggressive decks, and the grindier matchups. You have Phyrexian Arena for card advantage, Tranquil Frill back as a kind of life gainer, graveyard hater, and artifact enchantment hate. Deadly Cover Up as a sweeper for the creature decks, as well as Cruelty of Gix for the grindy mid-range decks. So you kind of get a discard effect, a tutor, and a reanimate all in one spot. Moving on, Boros Convokies, 69%. So this deck here is looking to leverage cheap creatures that produce artifacts. So Novice Inspector, Voldaren Epicure, that you can then Gleeful Demolition to get tokens. The tokens can then be used to convoke or kind of use the ability of Warden to get some value. You can also convoke out Knight Errant of Eos to get you some virtual card advantage. Card draw without it being drawing. Imidane's Recruiter is an anthem for your team, similar with Sanguine Evangelist, that also leads a body. War Leader's Call can be ping damage, while also serving as an anthem effect as well. Ace is removal and an anthem, and then a Witch Stalker Frenzy for the bigger things that might be coming through. Your sideboard, Lithomantic Barrage for blue and red things, blue and white things, Destroy Evil as removal, and then Enchantment Hate. Lantern Flares removal, Rest in Pieces Graveyard Hate, Thalia for the control mid-rangey matchups as attacks, Knockout Blow for the red-based decks, and Urbrass Forge for the heavy removal-based strategies. Toxic, Bant Toxic. So it's mainly blue-white Toxic with the green for Venerated Rot Priest that puts poison counter whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell. So that's both your opponent's spells and your own, so you can target it with things like Aspirant's Ascent, Fading Hope. You could bounce your own thing. March of Swirling Mist gets you a whole bunch of counters. The Skrell's Hive is an engine in terms of giving you creatures, and then Lifelink. Crawling Chorus is a couple bodies in there. Skrell for protection. Charge of the Mites as removal and just instant speed creatures. Jawbone Duelist as another way to, with the double strike, if it hits twice, you get 2 toxic. Serum Snare as bounce effect, and then you can proliferate, bring the ending as a counter spell. Utility lands in the Seed Core and Myrex also in here. You have Aspirant's Ascent, just for like evasion, like against Convoke, it's hard sometimes to get through, so you can go over the top. Graveyard Hate, Disruption, for like bigger spells, sweepers, temporary lockdown style effects, bring this in against temporary lockdown to destroy evil, get lost for removal against bigger things. Annex Sentry as creature removal, and then Knockout Blow for the red base decks. Then go to Simic Cookies. So Cookies is an artifact aggro deck. Ash Lizzle had popularized it. So you have a bunch of cheap artifacts, Ginger Boots, Lava Spur Boots, the Wormlet gets bigger, Spyglass Siren makes artifacts, Hard-Hitting Question as a fight spell. You have main board, Graveyard Hate, and Agatha Soul Cauldron. Then you can also kind of port over the various activated abilities. So things like Surge Engine, any of your creatures can become unblockable. The Tough Cookie can animate non-creature artifacts that you could then pass along those abilities. Tightsail Larcenist as removal, Sentinel the Nameless City, Good Beater that makes tokens, and then Zoetic Glyph can animate any of your various artifacts. A big thing for this deck was the access of Botanical Sanctum in the mana base recently. Hard-Hitting Question, more removal, Artifact Enchantment Hate, pick your poison for flyers, and just flexible removal, Graveyard Hate, Disruption in terms of like counterspells, Spell Pierce, Repulsive Mutation. Tightsail Larcenist is more removal, activated abilities, you have Tishana's, and then Tezzeret for the grindier matchups. Another way to animate creatures, reduces the activated ability of some of your artifacts as well, and then just kind of gives you card selection. Mono red aggro, 62%. So this version of the deck has no squeeze, no Godric's in the 3 drops. You have Urabrask main as well as Case for grindier matchups. Witch Stalker Frenzy, for the most part, it'll be a 1-2 mana removal spell in the slot. You have your Slick Shots, Lightning Strikes, Fugitive Codebreaker, just very aggressive pump spells in here. Free Monstrous Rage, the Ancestral Angers for some card advantage. So it's more of a prowessy themed deck than like the heavy creature based one. But I really like the Forge in the main board, just provides you some card advantage or like sticky power with having creature every turn. And then Case provides you some card advantage. Sideboard, you have in the Festivities for like Convoke, Lithomantic Barrage, blue-white decks. Really with this deck, you could transform against creature decks into more controlling decks post-board with a bunch of removal. And then against like controller mid-range decks, you can just shift up with Koth and Urabrask Forge in there. Against like Atraxa and stuff, you have Twisted Fealty to steal that. Speaking of Atraxa, let's see some 4-color domain, 61%. Some interesting choices in this particular build. You have Disdainful Stroke main along with Negate, Long Goodbye as an uncounterable, Up the Beanstalk for card advantage. Witness the Future is a very interesting one, just shuffling cards to prevent you from milling out. Topiary Stomper for ramp, Spelunking, same thing. A lot of Wrath's main between Depopulate, Sunfall. Archangels in here, Traxas, Bird Migrations, Leyline Bindings, the whole jazz. This version of the deck, interesting lands being played as well. Restless Reef in here. You have some Field of Ruins, which is really just kind of putting that mana base to a push, but some interesting choices. Soulguide Lanterns, Disdainful Strokes, Long Goodbyes. There's a bunch of removal, interaction, stuff like that. I'm going to take a look at this one. I might paste a different list. I don't love some of the configuration in the mana base with this one here, but I'll post a domain list. It just might not be this exact one card. Temur Ramp, Temur Control, Temur Analyst. So this is another ramp deck that's leveraging these Kamigawa dual or fetches that come into play, sack, and then they find a land. You gain a life. So you can get them all back with Aftermath Analyst. When they come into play, you get multiple triggers from Nissa that can then help you find analysts, stuff like that. Kind of float your mana that way there. And then kind of the core of the deck is you stick a Virtuous Strength down and then just fireball your opponent with World Soul's Rage. Time Explosion as a sweeper, Kellen for some card advantage, and ramp. Memory Deluge helps you find cards. You have Doppelgang that can like break the client, just copy a whole bunch of stuff with all your mana. Fires of Victory, Braid as removal. Galvanic can double up on like burn spells or various kind of effects, and then Shigeki can help you rebuy stuff that might have gone away. Spelunking is really cool with this deck because the lands that would normally come to play untapped or come into play tapped come into play untapped. Sideboard, pick your poison for various hate pieces or flyers. Turn the earth against mill decks. So if they have like Jace, you can just tuck cards back to your library. Traxxas Falls just deals with Traxa or some of its friends in terms of artifacts or enchantments. Negates for the heavy kind of counterspell battles. Tranquil Fillback for the mirror. Just flexible card, can hit on a lot of things. Vampire's Vengeance for Convoke and like the aggressive decks. Baloth for heavy discard decks. Even against like Burn, you might want it, or like the red decks. When they're bringing in a lot of graveyard hate, you can kind of switch your package and go Boreas, Run, Chronic Paul, just kind of change your threat package and become Temur Ramp. That just kind of keeps throwing out bombs as opposed to being relying on your graveyard in that case if they drop like Rest in Peace or something. Then lastly, we have Mono Black Midrange at 57%. This one here, a lot of discard in this particular package. We see Binding Negotiation as a way to hate at your opponent's hand. A lot of removal options, Caustic Broncos in here. So similar to the green deck, you lose out on some of the like flexible artifact enchantment hate out of it. This one's on Preacher's main, Karavek that can rebuy stuff. Lily's Hostile Investigator, really good in the mid-range mirrors. Gix Command is a sweeper. Harvester of Misery is a creature and a sweeper and can be used as removal, so just some flexibility in that case. In all honesty, in this type of build, I would probably play Myrex over Mishra's Foundry. Provides fixing early and just the redundancy over just a 2/2 I think is powerful. Hand hate, removal, graveyard hate, and just if they have like a lot of targeted removal, this is a flexible card. A flexible sweeper in Karn Silex in a way. Can deal with artifacts, enchantments. Lily for the control matchups or mid-range matchups. Path Peril for aggressive decks. Phyrexian Arena. The last thing I wanted to do, I'm going to pull up an Esper Midrange deck. Let's see what we got, because you'll likely still run into it. Smaller. This is for April 16th, so to now. So a little bit wider of a range, not the last week, but we'll pull this one up for folks to see. So this one over the last 100 games, 69% win rate. So this is a Rafine deck. A lot of powerful 2-drops here. No More Lies, Go for the Throat. Give your flyers and Duelist of the Mind, Fairy Mastermind, as well as Deep Cavern Bat. Denix, kind of crush your opponent's graveyards in a way, prevents them from targeting stuff, and then gives you 2 bodies in 1. Removal with Cut Down and Go for the Throat. Lord Skitter in here. Preacher in here. Rafine, kind of the engine of the deck. Hostile Investigator as a way to eat out your opponent's hand, but also this counts for any discard, so even the Rafine Connive would also trigger that. Back God and the Virtual Loyalty in the top end. You have Hand Hate, Enchantment and Big Stuff Hate, Long Goodbye for smaller stuff for the Mirror, good against Rafine. Some counters, Pest Control for the Convoke decks, Rest in Peace for Graveyard Hate, Lauren for artifact enchantments, Tashana for like the domain activated abilities, and another back god for the aggressive deck. So that's it. Good luck to all those playing. If you hit 7 wins, drop a comment and share your deck list. Always happy and interested to see what folks do well with. And we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching.